So, hi. Hey, everybody. I know I usually don't do face cam for stuff. I'm gonna try to do more of this, actually. But today, Calum made a video talking about Marvel fatigue. And honestly, it was a pretty good video overall. Like, he did cover both sides, and I think he handled it pretty well. I liked it. I, of course, was mentioned in the video a lot because we always talk about like what's going to happen with the MCU, where's it going to go from here, and I ended up while watching kind of wanting to share my opinions. So let me know if you guys like this. I might do more of this. So this is kind of a direct response to what Calum did. So if you guys want to go watch his, you'll probably have a lot of ideas of what I'm talking about and what I am responding to. So it makes sense to view this kind of as like a companion piece to what he did, like the other side of the coin. And speaking of the other side of the coin, I guess we better start on the other side of my personal coin. Um, it's no secret that I've been a little dismissive when people bring up Marvel fatigue, because I guess I should first explain what Marvel fatigue even is. People are saying now that Endgame has happened and it was the perfect ending to the MCU, um, we can't keep going. We should stop right there before we ruin this beautiful, beautiful thing. To some degrees, I understand that critique. I mean, when things go on for too long and you run out of ideas and stuff, it's sometimes better to just stop than to keep the story going. So, when several friends brought up that they were going to stop watching the MCU movies after Endgame, I can kind of understand it. It was a great ending to what had come before. And despite what I'm going to say during this video, I will say that if anyone wants to stop watching the MCU after Endgame, you're fine to do that. Think of this as like a stopping point on the train. If you want to get off, you can. But to those of you out there who are like, well, it's not that I don't want to keep loving Marvel, it's just that it feels like if it keeps going from here, it could get repetitive and bad, and maybe we should just stop and not go when the bad stuff starts coming. To which my immediate response is, maybe wait till the bad stuff is here and then just jump out off of the train while it's moving. Because, I mean, right now the Star Wars movies are pretty not that great, but Mandalorian is so good. So, because of that, I definitely think it's one of those things where you should dip your toe into what's coming up, see if you like it, and if you don't, just don't swim in the pool. In case these analogies are going over people's heads, I am a big Marvel fan. I absolutely love the MCU. I love the comic books. I have read a ton, which is why I'm a little defensive whenever anybody says, hey, the MCU is done. It reached its conclusion. It's not really that the MCU has reached its conclusion at all. Calum actually brought up that it's the perfect ending, so why wouldn't you just stop? I kind of disagree with that. Like, honestly, it's a great ending and it's a great stopping point to You Want Out, but Doctor Strange only has one movie. There's more stories to tell with that character, to the point where if you stopped right here, it kind of seems like you're doing a disservice to the fans. It's not just that either. There are so many comic book storylines that they haven't even touched yet. Like, Secret Invasion is coming up. We could potentially see Civil War 2 done with Captain Marvel. And I guess it would have to be with War Machine, which actually would maybe be more tense because those two have a relationship in the comics. And of course, I don't even have to talk about the impossible hype that comes with adding in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. I mean, that one's a given. You guys already know about that one. So, while I fully acknowledge that this could be a great stopping point, to say that they should end here, I disagree completely. I think the MCU should keep going, and those who want to get off the train, I'm glad you enjoyed your ride up until now, and have a great day. And to those who want to keep riding, hey, we're going to see some cool shit, hopefully. Another critique that I've seen brought up, not just from Calum, but he is the one who I'm referencing today, is that the MCU, they shouldn't do TV shows because, it's going to be kind of hard to follow. Like, I really get that, because up until now, the MCU has just been movies. There have been side comics that aren't really important to the movies, and the occasional one-shot here or there, but for the most part, if you want to know the story of the MCU, you gotta watch the movies. But here in a whopping, what is it now, 3 days? Jesus Christ, 3 days! We will get... I did 2 fingers there. That was stupid. Derp. In 3 days, 3 fingers there for you all to see, we are getting our first Marvel TV show in the form of WandaVision. Now, WandaVision wasn't planned to be first, but it is now starting off Phase 4 of the MCU. And that's something I think we should pay special attention to. The fact that everything in the MCU this far has been treated as phases. Like, for example, there is Phase 1. So after the first Avengers movie, if you wanted to, you could jump out. I would say it's weirder to do it after Phase 2, because, everything that happened with Ultron is kind of setting up shit. But hey, you wanted to jump out with Phase 2, I guess you could have done that too. And absolutely, you could jump out here at Phase 3. And to sort of tie it back together with what I was just saying, since the TV shows are coming in, I can understand how audiences would be intimidated. These are going to affect the movies. That has been promised by Kevin Feige. So, yeah, it seems like they're going to alienate a big ton of their audience with these shows. I guess the smart thing to do here would be to make the shows about side characters that probably wouldn't have gotten their own movies or anything, and, tell their stories. Like, I don't know, Wanda Maximoff, Vision, Loki, Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, the ones they picked. Now, obviously, all of that was a little cheeky, but let's be honest here. These shows are a good thing for the story of the MCU. I want everybody to rewind with me for a little bit. I want to take you to the movie Thor. Let's start there. And you have this scene where Thor is in the rain trying to get his hammer back. He has to fight several soldiers, and Hawkeye just shows up. His first MCU appearance, he shows up and aims his bow at Thor, and he's about to take the shot. That alone was our introduction to Hawkeye. We didn't even get his name in that movie, I don't think. They might have called him Barton, but that was it at best. The same thing happened with Black Widow. She just sort of showed up and didn't get a story about herself to, push her appearance. That happened with Wanda Maximoff, Quicksilver. This happens with a lot of characters. I mean, Vision is kind of an exception to this, but there are plenty of characters that just show up. And while it's okay to do that with characters, because obviously those movies were great, it didn't hurt them, wouldn't it have been cool if, before you saw Hawkeye, or right after Thor came out, when people were like, wow, I wish I knew more about this guy with the bow who looks so cool, there was a short little series that you could watch that would give you Hawkeye's origin story. I think that's what they're about to do with She-Hulk and Moon Knight and stuff, where they set up these characters. That way, when they show up in Avengers, you may not necessarily need to know their backstory, but if you want it, it's there. Also, I think that this opens a lot of new opportunities to tell stories with characters you really couldn't before. And obviously, Hawkeye is my favorite superhero, so I'm pumped for that. But there's another character that has not been given their dues in the MCU that is probably about to, and that's Hulk. Hulk showed up plenty of times in the MCU. Like, there are tons of appearances by Bruce Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo. I mean, we haven't been missing him or anything. He's there. He's in Thor Ragnarok. He has his own movie. He's at the end of Iron Man. He's in all the Avengers films. Hulk is there. But he doesn't have his own story, does he? But it's confirmed that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is going to be in She-Hulk. And not only that, freaking Abomination is going to come back too. That's a part of the story that we had left behind that Marvel is grabbing and pulling back. And that's not the only time they've done that too. Talos is going to have a story where he's hanging out with Nick Fury. We could potentially see Iron Lad pop up in Ironheart. And there's a ton of little strings that Marvel can pull on with these series that just wouldn't have fit into a movie. WandaVision isn't even out yet, and we can already see that they are playing with the idea of television over movies. You can't tell the story with all of these different references to the older TV shows, like Bewitched and Full House and stuff, in a movie setting. That would have been a complete distraction from the plot. But now, if what people are saying with each different era of sitcom having its own episode, if that ends up being a thing, then obviously WandaVision can cover a lot more ground than they would have if it was a 2 or even 3 hour movie. And that's kind of the final thing I have to say about the shows. There's more time now. We can introduce characters and we can go on their stories and we can have slow moments. I remember when Mandalorian came out, one of the reviews I saw, I believe this was on Jesse Cox's YouTube channel, he mentioned that he loved the fact that the Mando just sort of takes a second to learn how to ride the creature there. I believe it's called Dewback. For once, frickin' Star Wars got to take its time and set up characters very subtly and have these scenes in bars that can be long and talkative. And let's be honest, the MCU always has had a little bit of a problem with rushing things. Hello, Thor, it is me, Anthony Hopkins, your dad. Anyways, you have a sister. Also, I'm dying. Also, your sister is evil. Also, Asgard used to be evil. Also, I used to be evil, but I'm not evil. Also, Doctor Strange was over there a minute ago. Anyways, bye, I'm dead. Thor Ragnarok is probably the best example of a movie that doesn't get a ton of time to breathe. That being said, it's still a great movie. I ain't shitting on Thor Ragnarok. I love that film. But you can't deny that, there's not a lot of emotional weight there. And in the trailers for WandaVision, I can already tell that this is going to be a tearjerker. So, yeah, again, if you just want to watch the movies, it's very possible that Marvel has accommodated that. Again, they've given you this stopping point with Endgame, so I trust the story writers to at least kind of accommodate for people who don't watch the shows. You probably won't know the full story, but I have to assume you'll still know enough where they get your money. So I guess the last thing to bring up is the biggest criticism of it all. That maybe Marvel is getting stale. Yeah, we talked a little bit about this earlier when I mentioned that like there's so many characters and stories still to tell, but let's face it, there's only so many times you can watch a good guy fight a bad guy and love it. And I agree with you. The MCU definitely has a formula. We can't pretend it doesn't. But I think the main difference is there are so many different filmmakers behind this and so many different types of stories being told that it's always going to be a little interesting, even if it still has that same formula. And honestly, with the TV show aspect, it seems like we're breaking the formula just a little bit, just enough to where I think this is going to be a very different experience. Again, with WandaVision, I'm bringing that up because that's the one we've seen the most. We're playing a lot with, it seems to be mental health and Wanda's own mind. I really wonder how they're going to handle this. And it's so interesting to see. Like, I understand that there are some things about the MCU that are stale. Like, we're always going to have another fight scene. We're always going to have another big bad who is probably CG. And it's always going to be what it is. But my question to you is, why is that a bad thing? Yeah, I understand that, like, saying it's just the same old is a valid criticism, but it's not the same old. Most of the Marvel movies are very different from each other. I think a great example is two of the best Marvel movies, Guardians of the Galaxy and Winter Soldier. These two movies have pretty much nothing in common. One is an epic, like, espionage film where Captain America is on the run and has to figure this out, and he becomes an enemy of the law. Like, that's so cool to see Captain America go through. While Guardians of the Galaxy is about these space nobodies who go on an adventure that, to the overall MCU, isn't really that important, but god damn if it isn't fun. These movies are so different, night and day, and yet they're in the same world, and watching these characters interact with other characters will never not be interesting. I really believe we have something special with the Hawkeye show because I know the story they're adapting and I'm so excited. Can't wait to see more of Lucky the Pizza Dog and Kate Bishop. And please put Clint in the classic suit. I am getting sidetracked by my Hawkeye love, but classic suit. The point being of all of this is I think it's understandable to be nervous. Like, we don't want the MCU to get stale. Calum brought up The Simpsons. It's been going on for forever. People love to remember it, and the fact that it's still going and going poorly is kind of disheartening. This thing we once loved, we now ignore and view with somewhat disdain. I never want that for my Marvel bros. But that's just it. I think that most people are afraid of Marvel fatigue and may even be feeling it themselves, but I don't think that's where the story is heading. Yes, we finished the Infinity Saga. What's coming next is the next saga, and it's going to lose some people, and it's probably going to get some new people, like great stories do. Could it be awful? Yeah, absolutely. But the last saga could have been awful too. We had to give it a chance, and we loved it. And of course, these comic books sold for a reason, so we have to assume there are good stories in there to adapt. And I've read some, so I know there are some good ones. Like this one. Mer. So, do I think Marvel fatigue is going to be a problem? I don't know. It's possible a lot of people will be feeling it. But do I think that the MCU movies are going to suffer for it? No. The big thing I keep hearing is every time I bring up that like these characters are getting sequels, people are like, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna go watch the sequels," and I'm like, "Well, aren't you getting out at in-game?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, but I want to see what happens with Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is gonna be in the next big crossover, guys." And again, it could all be bad. Maybe at the end of this, it will turn out Calum was right, and they should have just stopped it in-game. And if that's true, then, well, I guess I was wrong, and yeah, it should have stopped where it did. But I'm never going to be mad at a film, anything, for keep on going when it's successful. Keeping going when it's successful. I can't talk, motherfucker! And honestly, now that they are doing shows for some of the more obscure characters, we're going to see a side of the MCU we've never seen before. I think it's about to get a lot bigger and honestly, a lot better. So, yeah, let me know in the comments. I almost said comics. My brain. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Marvel fatigue and how excited you are for the future shows coming out. I myself am super pumped for Hawkeye and Moon Knight and She-Hulk. She-Hulk specifically, I'm so interested in. I mean, obviously, Hawkeye's #1, but She-Hulk's there too, and I need them inside of my brain. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I wasn't trying to impose my opinion on anybody, so I hope you just viewed this as a fun little distraction. Have a good one, guys. Bye.